Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is Monday. Rick's mic is working now, by the way, folks.
Yes.
It is Monday, and all of our guests today are brought to you by our friends at Passant Motors. We are back, and so is the Passant Motors Scholarship, bigger than ever, with $33,000 in scholarships awarded. Learn more at PassantMotors.com, BASANT Motors.com. Have we got Elliotte Friedman? Okay, we'll have him in 1 second. Meanwhile, Rick, you have an update when it comes to the late Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew, the funeral going on today in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, the funeral is going on today, and I remember, Don, you called me the day this happened in the summer, and how shocked we were and how bad of an event this is. And a person can't even go out and drive his bike and just on a leisurely drive with his brother and not come home. We were all devastated. The hockey world is turning out today for Johnny Gaudreau's funeral, and his wife said at the funeral that she is expecting their third child as well. So she went on to talk about Sean Monahan in Calgary, how Sean was absolutely a vital part of Johnny Gaudreau's career in Calgary, to just paid homage to Sean Monahan. They were very close. But Donnie, just a very sad and tragic event. Very sad.
And Sean had signed with Columbus in large part because
big reason why was
Johnny
to play
Gaudreau
with Johnny.
Was there. So Johnny Gaudreau's wife announcing that she's pregnant. The same with Matthew. His wife also
is pregnant as well, which just makes it more frustrating,
more
and maddening, and heartbreaking, and just very sad.
Got Elliotte? Still working on Elliotte. Elliotte from Hockey Night in Canada, 32 Thoughts podcast. Kyle Bukakis, we understand, is going to be the co-host of the 32 Thoughts podcast, taking over from Jeff Merrick.
Campbell River native, right here in your old stomping grounds, Campbell River, Donnie.
Mm-hmm. Got him? Got Elliotte?
Pride of Campbell River.
All right, Elliotte Friedman joining us from Las Vegas, Hockey Night in Canada, 32 Thoughts podcast. Elliotte, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
My pleasure. I didn't get the Zoom. It's all Ryan's fault. I'm blaming him, just so you know.
What a shock.
Well, trust me, that's the least of our worries today. We had an entire segment where Rick didn't have his mic on. Yeah. So this is nothing. Elliotte, I hate to start this way, but we just talked about a heartbreaking story getting more heartbreaking, and that's the fact Johnny Gaudreau's wife has announced that she's pregnant with their third child. Elliotte, if we could put this, if you don't mind, into hockey terms, what will his legacy be when it comes to this? When it comes to the great game of hockey?
You know, it's still really hard to think about, to be perfectly honest, Donnie. Like he's still, like, at various points, you think that you're coming to grips with the fact that this has happened, but then something like this, like Meredith's announcement, comes, and it just makes you shake your head and feel the pain even more. You know, I think that. I think the tributes I've received from other people, like I knew Johnny Gaudreau, he was very friendly. We had a good relationship, but I wouldn't say I was particularly close with him as a lot of other people were. It's very clear he was a popular friend and he was a popular teammate. And in a lot of ways, I think the reason he appealed to people was he's kind of like not built as the ideal hockey player would be. The fact that he isn't some big, strong monster that just overpowered people. And he was, you know, someone who wasn't the biggest, was pretty slight, but found a way to become one of the best players in the NHL through pure will and skill. And, you know, there were a lot of good stories I heard from fans. Like one fan sent me a DM who just said that, you know, when Gaudreau showed up with the Flames, he was a guy who was not in a great spot in his life. And, you know, one of the things every time he started looking forward, he loved Gaudreau, watching Gaudreau play. It didn't take long. And, you know, it kind of helped him at a really tough point in his life where he would look forward to Flames games and watching Gaudreau, and that brought him joy. And I think there's a lot of stories like that. He obviously had a lot of great friends in the NHL, from Kevin Hayes to Sean Monahan to just about everybody, Erica Branson, who you guys know well. And, you know, there was a great story I was told, Donnie, earlier this summer. There's a young and 09 born player in the States who was playing 2-on-2 with Gaudreau. And this is a guy who's got a chance to be a player. He's right now at one of those high schools, which is high-level hockey. He'll probably be playing for the national development team. And he was playing 2-on-2, and Gaudreau was his teammate. And Gaudreau kind of lifted his stick because he didn't think that this player would be able to find him with a pass where he was on the ice. And the player put it through, and Gaudreau was surprised, but he recovered to score. And Gaudreau walked over and skated over and said, I didn't think you'd be able to get me with that pass. That's a great pass. And someone else told me about the story, but the kid was just beaming that Johnny Gaudreau, I'm just looking up his name, the kid was just beaming that Johnny Gaudreau would say to him, wow, like, you have the skill to make that pass. I didn't necessarily think that you would be able to get it to me. And his name is Braden Scuderi. He's a 2009 born player. And I think that in addition to all the stories that we know and we can think of, there were a bunch of stories I got told from other people like that just really showed the impact he had.
Yeah, I think he had the ability, and it's rare to make people feel better about themselves. And God bless him and his family, Matthew, everybody. Tough turn, Elliotte. We'll take it. We haven't talked to you all summer, but $14 million a year for Leon Draisaitl in Edmonton. What does that say about where the Oilers and maybe the rest of the NHL think the salary cap is going?
Well, I think the one thing you have to remember, Don, is if you take a look at a lot of the top players, like a lot of the top guys, and Draisaitl's a top guy, they're about 15 to 16% of the salary cap. And I think Draisaitl's number comes in at 15.8. So it's not, although it looks high, and it's the highest number we have right now, if you take a look at where a lot of these contracts have been signed during their times, it's right there. The top players get between 15 and 16% of the salary cap, and Leon Draisaitl is a top player. Now, everybody here seems to be optimistic about where the cap is going. It went up 5% this year. Under the CBA, it's supposed to go up again 5% the next year, and then we'll see. And people are very optimistic. They are very, very optimistic. Now, I mean, the only thing is, and knock on wood, the Toronto Maple Leafs, when they did all their contracts with Tavares and Marner and Matthews, that was pre-COVID. And, COVID obviously changed the dynamic and really shut them down. And, I think you're hoping, and I think we're all hoping as a world, there's nothing like that ever again that does it. But as long as things continue to go as people are predicting and expecting, nobody will give me hard numbers. Like I've asked, are there hard number predictions out there? And nobody will give me those. But the one thing you see, Donnie, is that the cap is lagging behind a bit right now because they had to pay back the owners from COVID. So I do think teams are very optimistic. I do think the agents and the players are very optimistic. Things appear to be very healthy. There's a new Canadian TV deal coming in 2 years, and I know the league is setting some pretty aggressive targets. So, if things keep going that way, I don't think it's going to be a problem.
All right, Elliotte, let's focus on Vancouver. Thatcher Demko, it's a number one story. It's been for weeks here, Elliotte. What are you hearing on Demko? When's he going to be ready? Camp, preseason, regular season? Give it to us.
So, Rick, do you want me to share the text you sent me before the show?
No, I don't. Keep that private, Elliotte. Keep it private.
Okay. Yeah, I don't release text messages like that. You never have to worry. Look, I think Demko, in a lot of ways, it reminds me a lot of the playoffs last year. And that is that nobody is really sure. I think anybody who sits here right now and says, I know what the exact timeline is either A, the doctor, or B, kidding everyone. I think that we're still kind of uncertain. Now, the one thing that I do believe the Canucks are not panicking that this is going to be half the season or threatens the season or anything like that. But I think there is an understanding that he may not be ready for the start of the year. And I think one of the things that everybody is getting a handle on here is and I'm always really careful about, somebody said to me, like, you're blaming Ian Clark for this. No, I'm not blaming Ian Clark for this, because I think Ian Clark is one of the best in the world at what he does, and he's one of the major reasons that Thatcher Demko was developed into who he is. But what I do think is the Canucks feel that Demko was working too hard, and they don't want him on ice doing drills as much as, and I think Demko kind of has been understood to agree with that rest is something he's going to have to do a bit more. Like, one of the things that happened last year going into the playoffs was the Canucks told Demko, we need you to start twice before the playoffs, or else we're just not sure we can count on you. So he rushed to get himself back, and I think everybody wonders if that contributed to the injury. Now, if you're the Canucks, can you blame them for saying that? No, you can't. If you're Demko, can you blame him for working as hard as he can and pushing himself to do that? No, you can't. So I do believe that in addition to the injury, there's also the plan of how do we work Demko so that he gets all the work he does that he needs to do to be a top goalie, continues to be as good as he can be, but also give him a break so he's not working as much as he was. Because I do think everybody here believes that workload was part of the issue. So I think they're not going to push him. I think the Canucks feel they're good enough that they can start the year if they have to without him, they have a good team. And then, but they don't appear worried, Rick, that this is going to be a long-term thing. Now, something I said on my podcast, had some people upset that he's going to have to learn to play through this, and that's a disaster. I don't necessarily believe that's the case, because I don't believe the injury is that serious, and I do think he can learn to play his way through it. But I think that's part of the issue here is he's going to have to learn to deal with whatever this is and play in a way or work out through it in a way that he can strengthen the area around it. I think the knee, I guess, strengthen the area around it and just make himself stronger around it. Like, I have heard this is not a devastating injury.
Elliotte, they still have that offer out to Lankinen. What do you see? Do you see another goalie coming in for training camp?
I do. I do think that the Canucks would like that. Number one, it increases competition.
Yeah.
Number two, Rick, like, it gives you a safety blanket. I think with Lankinen, I think one of the things you do when you're in his kind of situation is you kind of wait to see if something develops late. Is there another situation in the league that you think that maybe a goalie shows up injured or something happens where you think you have a better opportunity or could sign a better deal? So I don't think Lankinen is disinterested in the Canucks. I just think at this point in time, it behooves him to wait as long as he can, or as long as he feels comfortable, to see what opportunities are out there. But I do think you're going to look to go out and get someone else, whether it's PTO or a contract. The other thing about this too is that, Jim Rutherford's been around a long time, so he'll figure out how to deal with this. But you're always careful too, if you bring in someone like who would need waivers, you try to structure your contract or make sure that if you have to put them through waivers, it's at an opportune time where they're not going to be claimed. Like, one of the things the Maple Leafs did with Martin Jones last year was they put a bonus around the start of the season. So people who wouldn't want to pay that kind of a bonus, they just let him slide through on waivers, and he played really well for Toronto last year. So that's one of the things that the Canucks will be looking at too is, if we really think we need someone and they might be a third goalie, or, you have to structure things or prepare for things in a way that if you really need them, you don't lose them on waivers.
And very quickly, Elliotte, before we let you go, you're in Vegas. For people who don't know, what's happening in Nevada for you?
So, Donnie, there's the NHLPA media tour where one, or in some cases, like both Draisaitl and McDavid are coming from Edmonton. 2 players per team come, and when you guys when the fans out there watch the opens of games, and there's players skating and shooting the puck, like, they film that. So there's like a two-parter of it here. One is filming the openings for places like us and ESPN and TNT, and the other is interviews with some of the rights holders and others who are around. So I'm out here doing some interviews with a bunch of players. It's a good group. Quinn Hughes is representing the Canucks. I saw he met with the media today, so he's going to hop on a plane either tonight or tomorrow to come out here and see us. And basically, it's one player per team, and it's one of my favorite times of the year because everyone's in a good mood and nobody hates us yet. So, I really enjoy that.
Yeah. Well, I didn't say this, but I hope you had a great summer. Back to work for you
too, guys.
And us. And, we can't thank you enough. You're back on board.
Well, you know what? In case anyone's not aware that the fee that we do for this, we graciously donate to the Canucks for Kids. And I'm happy to do that because, that's one of the things the Canucks do really well. So, I'm happy to come on and get a little bit of Twitter hate if it means Canucks for Kids benefits from it. So it's all good.
Whatever it takes. Elliotte, thanks for doing this. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
All right, guys. Take care. Speak to you later.